I'm very lucky to introduce our next speaker. So we are joined by Dr. Manish Malik, who is Associate Head of Student Experience and Senior Lecturer in the School of Energy and Electronic Engineering at the University of Portsmouth. He's worked in HE for over 20 years as a practitioner and a researcher into engineering education, and is a champion of inclusive learning, teaching and assessment. And he's going to explore with us the potential for generative AI to promote the principles of justice, equity, diversity and inclusion, so the JEDI principles. So may the force be with Manish, and I'm going to hand you over to him now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. I'll share my screen in a second. And while I'm doing that, I'll talk a bit more about the Old South network that we are, that I chair, and we are currently running a working party, which focuses on making assessment across HE institutions more inclusive, diverse, and the JEDI principles, as you did too. So today, what we're going to be talking about is the threats and opportunities that large language models bring to us in terms of making higher education more just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive. And that kind of also highlights that currently, even HE is not. We are talking about AI and AI models not being just, equitable, diverse, and promoting and perpetuating the biases of society. Well, we have example of HE, which itself faces the similar criticism, if you like. So let me just pull this thing down. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, yeah. So large language models and HE, what are the similarities? There are the difficulties around higher education being just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive. We all are aware of several initiatives that people are trying to undo. For example, decolonizing the curriculum, finding ways of supporting different learner needs, and so on. It's not just race I'm going to focus on, but I'm going to focus on all sorts of diverse needs and populations. So Gurnam mentioned something at the end of the previous part of today's session about values and how we can use those to subvert or change or challenge, the superiority of the other, or not the other, the white, or the dominant, if you like. And I'm sort of saying that using this framework, the just, equitable, diverse, inclusiveness framework, we could kind of do that, because these are values that we hold dear to our higher education existence. We want these things to be in our makeup of courses and operations that we create for our students. So using that one, the first term, the just, what is focusing on, it helps us focus on who loses out in the higher education experience and in the higher education practice that we create for people. It is people who have financial pressures. They've been mentioned before, people doing part-time jobs or not having the money to purchase the books and so on. People who don't have social capital or access to networks or cultural capital even. And how can those things be turned around to make people from those backgrounds empowered? That's one thing which I'd like to highlight. And it's very similar in the sense of large language models or AI products as to how these tools, which mirror the society at the moment, can be changed or made to work. If a large language model replicates or perpetuates biases, or to use the term that was used earlier in the chat, some structural violence, then why can't it be used to perpetuate love? That's my question to people. In terms of equitable experience? Are we creating, in terms of HE, are we creating systemic barriers to prevent someone from excelling? For example, are we giving people assessment types which they are not necessarily going to excel in? For example, if we ask somebody with who has processing difficulty or memory problems, we put them in a closed book examination hall. Is that fair? Is that the right assessment of their understanding and application of knowledge? Are we closing doors to people who can benefit from flexible education, from flexible tuition, and so on? So if the HE has these problems, I'm saying, well, the LLMs will also have these problems. Are there any barriers to access, for instance? That for example, it was mentioned earlier that currently these models are open and available to people, but are all features available and open to people? Okay, what do you get when you pay ChatGPT, for instance? Do you get something different? If that is the case, is there a digital divide that we need to worry about? Likewise, do we, within higher education, do we know who we are teaching? Is there representation in class? So is the class looking diverse? That's one way of thinking, but also is the curriculum that we are delivering, is that decolonized? Is that? So there are problems even in today's higher education system, which are then also reflected perhaps in the language models, but can there be a way to serve a larger population than possibly that is possible with human interventions? Can the AI tool surpass us in that? So that's how I'd like people to think about. And lastly, the inclusive. Have we considered everyone's perspective? It was mentioned that we can have people on the table, but it is the voice that we include everybody's perspective? Do people feel included? Is the language in HE inclusive? Is there any subconscious bias? Is there any conscious bias? Do people feel the belonging? That's from going back to the last presentation. Belonging was one of the terms in the slides. Sorry, I'm just trying to see my own slides. I was hiding behind these. How can I get rid of this? Okay. Yeah. So in terms of LLMs, can that be used to you can use the term clean or improve the language used, and can that somehow improve the belonging feeling in students who don't necessarily want to come up to the lecturer and ask, what does this mean? Or feel there's that psychological safety thing even within the student population. So can LLMs help bridge those problems? That's what I'd like people to think. And if you are thinking whether either HE or AI is JEDI, is it just equitable, diverse, or inclusive? Well, probably neither of them are. That's why we have these awarding gaps and things, and that's why we have regulators to enforce that those gaps are reduced or minimized. Or completely reversed, in fact, or whatever. But if you are feeling like it, if you are trying to do the work in this area, I'd like to highlight one piece of prose, which is, a poem from this Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore, who comes from India. But his nice little song, it says that if this is written in Bengali, and I'll translate it for you. The first word is Jodi, which means if your call is not heard by anyone, then alone you must walk, alone you must walk. And he repeats that. And then the song goes on and talks about some other scenarios. And really the gist is something like this. If no one else responds to your call, you must walk alone the progressive path, fearless, don't turn back, and so on. Now you can think of this as a language learning model inside the head of the Nobel laureate, who's come on, given us some words that are put together, which gives us a way forward. And I'd like people to take that approach where language, whether you looking at HE or AI models, well, a lot of work is being done in HE to convert, to change things from where they are. Likewise, work needs doing in the AI sphere as well. Now, to understand what work needs doing in the AI, I'd like to show a little bit more about what this model, how this came about, and how we can start to make use of it in a positive way. So, of course, it's been mentioned that a lot of text, whether it is printed, written, whatever, code, even social media, all has been taken into and made this like a knowledge map, if you like. There's some areas which are dark. You can call that maybe they are the lesser known voices, and then there are some areas which are bright up. Maybe the more dominant culture, the more dominant feature of the language. So something like that, and then again a level of human input to make certain links between words and knowledge and ideas go stronger and to strengthen them. There is this element of human sort of guiding it to learn through human feedback. And while that is happening, the AI is also observing as to what is this rewarding, what is this technique doing, and it's learning that, and then it automates that side of thing, i.e. upping and downing certain things on its own. It takes over that aspect as it learns how to do that, and then it takes over. This is when it becomes really complex, and it just learns new things and promotes certain approaches over others. Now, I try to put the AI thing to test myself, and I said, well, I'm going to ask from the perspective of an academic. I want the AI to help me produce content or lecture plan or things like that. If I say to AI, this is what you want, I want you to do, but I wanted to make sure that it to act like a subconscious person with having some sort of subconscious bias, or even conscious bias, and come up with something which is not going to be acceptable. It comes back with these kind of messages. You heard about guardrails. Perhaps that's what this looks like on the ground. ChatGPT tells it, this is not good. I'm here to provide useful and unbiased information to all users. Bing does kind of similar. It even says, please don't ask me again to generate such content. Thank you for your understanding, with a sign emoji. And then Bard, again, it does the similar, very, very sort of similar type. Now, how does, I know Bard and Bing are different, but Bing and ChatGPT are same, but how do these different AI tools have come up with a very similar outcome? Well, it depends on the training and the guardrails put in there. And every one of these companies wants to be the system. So that's understandable. They've put those in. But then I tell it, okay, why don't you, you understood me wrong. I actually want to understand the subconscious bias. Therefore, please tell me, what are these words that I want to avoid and what are the words that I should be using. Then in the case of ChatGPT, it immediately takes a different approach and says, okay, fine, I understand your intention. Why don't you, yeah, I'll be happy to help you. So I said, what is master-slave technology? Now, master-slave technology is linked to it has racial connotations, and so therefore it starts to talk about that in inverted commas, and it explains to me that there are problems here, historical power dynamics and oppression and the like. So, and then I can ask it for what other terms you can use, and it will give me some. So I did the same thing in others. In Bing, for example, Bing also did very similar. Bard, on the other hand, no, I think Bard also did, at this stage, it did the same. It kind of showed to me that these are objectionable things. Now, when I try and do this a little bit more, for example, I'm asking them, these tools, to give me more examples of what shouldn't be used. So learning disability it says you should write learning difference or learning difficulty rather than disability. And you can see, lots of other such examples are highlighted. I don't know whether all of those examples are correct, but that's the problem with this approach. But yeah, I guess it's a start. But it's capable of doing that much. But as I kept asking Bing, what happened, it immediately red flag appeared. It stopped giving me more of these examples. So it prevents you from navigating or traversing all of its knowledge points, and it limits you. So that's a problem from what I was trying to do. Bard does something same. Bard and ChatGPT both continued giving me more and more such examples to allow me to make my lecture content or my assignment or anything that I was doing in my daily practice to make it better and more acceptable to many more people. Now, so we saw the story up until here. Now, what is next? So there's something called as zero shot answering or attempt or prediction that the AI is capable of doing. So once you ask it some question, it'll take you in its knowledge map, which is right in the right focus from your perspective, and it gives you the answer. That is why the wow factor. Yeah, I can see AI is working. It's giving me the right solution, the kind of things what I was thinking. This is zero shot, but that doesn't happen all the time. It happened in this case with ChatGPT when I said make the following text more EDI. Now remember, I've not told ChatGPT what EDI is. It's just an acronym at the minute. It understands it. It then removes all the objectionable terms, as you can see, and it automatically cleans the text that could potentially offend some people in the audience who are reading my notes or whatever. But that did not happen with Bard. So not all AIs are the same. They are developed and they learn and they become more or less useful depending upon what the intention of the creator is. So you can see that it tries to do something on when I ask make this more EDI, it tries to do something else because it doesn't understand that. It doesn't understand that. The similar thing happened when I made Bing and ChatGPT ask what is JEDI. JEDI is not a term that is so widely used that ChatGPT understand, and it made the similar mistake. But EDI was. So the point I'm trying to make is, if it understands, if it learns something, it can do things for you quite quickly. Then there is something called as follow me or fine tuning, or what's it called as a prompt engineering. So you know that this is the model of the knowledge map that the AI has. This is its zero shot focus on the part which it think is relevant, but it may not be in the right place. So you can take it to the right place. You can even take it to a place where it is quite dark and it's not a representation of what you think is the world is made of, and then there is bias, but it is present somewhere in the data. Or you can give it the data and it will learn from that what you want, and it will be able to do things for you in maybe cleaning up the notes that you were writing, and so on and so forth. So I then tried to have a conversation with Bard and said, so I said, okay, with EDI, I was referring to equitable, diverse, and inclusive language. Now it obviously knows these words because these are standard English words and they are present in its vocabulary. So on its own, it understood that EDI means this, therefore, it made the changes. It even highlighted what changes it made, which are absolutely as I wanted them to be, because I know that these pairs go together. One is more acceptable than the other. Therefore, I should use those. And I didn't have any knowledge of that earlier, but after using this tool, I was able to. Then I thought, okay, why not start to use it in my own practice? Why not use it in my exam revision service that I create for my students, where students come and talk to each other, and using past exam papers, they learn together, and I give them feedback on their shared answers. I call that service as Examopedia. Now I'll open up that, and I integrated Examopedia with But this is basically a Google document. It has past exam questions in a structured format, as you can see. These are student answers. And sometimes I posted answers from ChatGPT itself. And what was very surprising was that the answers looked so good. And some of the mistakes were even written in so confident manner. As you all know, the ChatGPT is a confident liar. The students couldn't see the difference. They couldn't care if there was one small mistake. So there are real dangers there, which brings us to the point that this can be used as an opportunity to inculcate or bring in critical learning, critical skills in students when they are in this kind of environment, when they are sharing what they're finding through AI, which may be objectionable to society, which may be objectionable to the subject, which may be objectionable to people and to the academic. They can then start to help the students, first of all, learn this is wrong, and they should try to do something about it. So I can put a comment. And again, if you did that same activity with the AI, well, it will pick it up eventually. If enough people did that by thumbs up or thumbs down, it will pick up eventually. So I think the onus is on the users to really make the model a bit more accurate as time passes. So that's one example. I can give you a few others, but I don't know about how am I doing with time.
Hi, not very much time left, Manish, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
If you could
Okay.
give you another minute, but we might have to whiz through.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, these are things that I've kind of said before. So this is basing, this is the feedback. Again, I've asked ChatGPT to make it more compassionate, make it more Jedi, and it changes that. Again, in terms of asking solutions for situations which you may not be trained in, for example, dyslexia or other things, then it kind of suggests some very good, way forwards. My own, the exams are all open book now within my own practice, not just my own, but in the entire school. We have gone down that route because we know that people who are dyslexic will have these issues with memory and processing. There are other examples that I've been using, and what I've found out, and I'm presenting a paper here at Warwick tomorrow, which is about independent learning and what potential ChatGPT and other tools like that have for students to learn independently without needing to go to some teacher and so on. So I will probably stop at that point and we'll take questions perhaps at the end. Yeah. Thank you.